Hi, this is Regina Y. Favors with Favors Single Life Tips. So, we're still talking about the viral post about the guy who says that when he gets a decent job, he's going to leave his current girlfriend. And so, up until this um, audio, I've discussed how to prevent entitlement, risk assessment, and gap assessment. So, we're going to discuss now financial planning. And this is important because he makes a number of financial references. And one of those references is the fact that he implies that he's broke. Also, another reference, the most obvious reference, is that when he gets a decent job, that he's going to leave his girlfriend or start dating his types. And so all those two instances imply that he is not necessarily where he needs to be financially. So then what should be his goal? Because if his goal is to leave the current girlfriend when he finds a decent job and start dating his types, there doesn't seem to be a goal to get himself better financially first. Because all he's going to end up doing if he doesn't look at his adult life from a financial planning perspective is he's going to move in with another girlfriend, say the exact same thing again because it worked the first time, and he's going to be basically on a hamster's wheel. So I'm going to read both the viral post as well as this content about financial planning and then add analysis. Financial planning, which involves looking at a client's entire financial picture and advising them on how to achieve their short-term and long-term financial goals. So now let's look at the post. I can't believe my girlfriend really think that I'm going to marry her and we'll live happily ever after. Soon as I get a decent job, I'm going to leave her and start dating my types. People need to understand that we're not entitled to be with them forever just because they were with us when we were broke. We each have our own preference, and that doesn't make me love my current girlfriend any less. Things change, feelings change. It is a vicious life cycle. If my girl could leave me for a guy who's established and appreciates her more than I do, I would gladly accept and never hold her hostage just because she's been with me through thick and thin. This entitlement over people's lives is the reason people resort to violent behavior. And as in um, every audio discussion, I always call attention to that very last sentence in the last paragraph about violent behavior. And anytime you get to a point where you feel like you have to exercise any kind of violent behavior, that should tell you that you should have left a long time ago. And so when you sort of engage in violent behavior, and the implication is that the current girlfriend is unwilling to let go of the relationship, and so the guy who is the writer of the post feels like he would have to get up in her face just to get her to understand that he's leaving. And so then, of course, if both parties are getting up into each other's faces and someone throws a punch, then we have violent behavior. And then after that, we have law enforcement involved. Anytime there's law enforcement involved, is going to hit your pocketbook. It's going to affect your finances, especially if one of you or both of you is arrested, right? Or arrested. So then let's look at this. Look at what he is putting forth from a financial planning perspective. Pretend that I am a financial planning specialist or just a financial planner. And you could do the same for yourself as well. And look at his words, his ideas, his belief system through the lens of a financial planner. Again, financial planning involves looking at a client's entire financial picture and advising them on how to achieve their short-term and long-term financial goals. Now, it is clear that he has some kind of goal. He is looking for a decent job. We don't know if he already has a job, but it is clear that whether or not he has a job, he's looking for a decent job. Doesn't He doesn't outline what a decent job means, especially if he's making under $25,000 a year and he wants to begin dating his types. He's going to have to make more than $25,000 a year. He also doesn't discuss race, ethnicity, or anything like that. But dating his types is connected to the term preference, and preference could mean anything. It could mean short, fat, skinny. It could mean black, white, Asian, Latino, right? So we don't quite know what his dating type is, which is linked to preference. Regardless, though, his current financial picture is he doesn't have a decent job. So then how can he really make any decision about dating his type until he actually have the type of decent job he wants? I also noted in previous audio discussions that if he doesn't have a decent job and he's referring to her as his current girlfriend, it's likely that he lives with her. He wouldn't make these types of comments if he lived in his own place, if he lived with a family member or a friend. He must be living in her house. That means that she's carrying the financial load. That's not mentioned here, but we can sort of infer that if he is speaking in this way and he's saying that she feels entitled to him, to the point of marriage, meaning that he must have in some ways led her to believe that they would get married. And women can also be delusional about these things, that we initially think just because we are investing into a romantic relationship that is actually going to convert. But I've heard a number of people make this comment, that did you ask him if he wanted to get married? Did you ask him if he wanted to marry you? Those are really two important questions. And maybe you can add a third. Did you ask him when you want to get married? And so if you look at it in terms of that, from the perspective of the woman, that maybe she didn't do her due diligence initially, because if he's in this kind of mindset to leave, that he's going to leave regardless, there is a gap in her understanding about the relationship, because why put up with someone who is going to leave you once he gets himself together? And that's one of the things that happens a lot of times when a woman invests in a man, especially financially. They tend to resent women who give them money, help them, house them, do everything that they would consider masculine. And what they will often do, men like this in this post will often do, is take all of the resources, accept all of the resources that the woman, the current girlfriend, is willing to invest, turn around and leave her once he gets himself together, go and marry someone who did nothing for him. And that's why I say I'm kind of on this trip now. Do not house a man. Do not give a man any money. Do not let a man build on his own. I have 2 or 3 blog articles that argue those points, because no matter what, he is 100% an adult. And he needs to make sure that he takes care of himself as an adult. So his current financial picture is he doesn't have a decent job. This is by his admission. So then the financial planning focus then should be on getting a decent job, staying on that job for however long you can stay on it, right? Depending upon the type of job. It could be an entry-level position or the next level in terms of supervisor, manager, or director, and then on up from there. Staying on that job for however many years, because if you're going to start dating your types according to you are going to require a lot more investment, because right now we have to assume that he's not really investing in his current girlfriend, because you don't leave something that you are investing in. You don't say out of nowhere or look to the future, when I get a decent job, I'm going to leave my current girlfriend and start dating my types. That means you are not investing. That means then he's not putting in any money, because anytime you are investing in anything, it's like you take ownership of it. I don't know if you remember that movie Baby Boy with Tyrese Gibson and Taraji P. Henson, and she had the car and she had her own place. And oftentimes he would take her car, but then he would also sort of add value to it. I think he put rims on it. He would get it detailed. He would get, I guess, the car fixed or something like that, painted, whatever investment. So then he started to take ownership of it as if it was his car, because anything that you invest in, you care about. It wasn't his car per se, it was her car, but he cared enough about it to take care of it. Now, he cheated in it, you know. Um, he didn't always, act right as a partner, but the investment that he made in the car was very clear. He kept it nice, he kept it clean, he kept it fixed and everything. And so when you invest, you tend to take care of it. So this tells us that he's not taking care of his current girlfriend financially. He's not making any investment. People might say, well, you don't always have to invest financially. You can invest in other ways. It's likely that he's not even investing in other ways. He might do a drive-by, maybe bring a meal home, maybe bring some flowers and candy on Valentine's Day home, because he know he would look stupid, right, if he didn't. But his love for his current girlfriend, and even though he uses the word love in the second paragraph, his love is more along the lines of a drive-by love, because you don't up and leave somebody when you get a decent job. So then you're not letting the person in on the secret that you don't plan to stay. And what he's labeling it as change, that things change, feelings change, it is a vicious life cycle. That's not a vicious life cycle. To just up and leave a girlfriend who has been helping you all this time. What that is basically a hamster's wheel, and you're just going to up and leave when you are required to make a contribution. Because if he doesn't have a decent job, he's probably not making at least a 50% contribution. So instead of making a contribution when he gets a decent job, he's just going to leave and present himself as a nice person to the new girlfriend, because he's talking about how she shouldn't feel entitled to him, entitled to a person's life, but he feels entitled to her life. And I noted that as well. So then we don't have a firm entire financial picture for him, other than to suggest that if he doesn't make finances a priority and not romance, he's going to be right back where he started, because he's missing some steps if he says he's going to leave once he gets a decent job, because he doesn't have anything else to secure himself in terms of belief system. So then if you look at what his short-term goals are, advising him on his short-term goals and long-term goals, the short-term goal for him is him placing romance over finance. Again, we do have to applaud him in some ways for him recognizing that he doesn't have a decent job in order to secure himself as an adult. That's a very important self-reflection objective. But it doesn't make any sense to leave and not build with the person that you're already with, right? We also don't know his age, but if you visit his Twitter account, you can kind of see what he looks like. He's probably under 30. But he does make a reference to being broke. And I don't know if he's just using that wording because it's just easier to use, because he doesn't look like he will be old enough to use that type of language. But broke, and then also at the very end, the third paragraph where he's talking about just because someone has been with you through thick and thin, tells you that his short-term financial picture is one of being kind of underwater, maybe. If he's using the word broke, and we don't know what has led up to broke, but that is his short-term financial picture. So then what would be his long-term financial goals? Those would be, of course, to secure himself financially. That he should not be looking for another relationship to secure himself emotionally. That his goal, if he had told his girlfriend, when I get a decent job, I'm going to go on ahead and get my own place because I think it's important for me to have my own place, and then we can just date and then take it from there. So a person can respect you more. A woman may not like it, right? Because she might say, yeah, just stay here. I mean, we can work together. You can save your money. It's better that an adult man gets his own place. He needs to have his own place. He needs to understand what that is, what that means. Because as long as a man is living in a house with a woman, it's really no different than him being a kid to a mother. But when he bears the responsibility of managing himself as an adult by keeping a job, having a place, and paying for it himself, not having a dating rotation where different women give him money and cook and clean for him or whatever, and he doesn't manage his life himself. So if you look at it from his standpoint, again, his short-term financial goals are based upon his current financial picture. He doesn't have the decent job, he's broke, and he's struggling through thick and thin. So then if you look at the financial picture from her standpoint, the current girlfriend, it is implied that she must make more money than he does. And it is also implied that she must be carrying both of them, right? And so then and then also it is implied that it is her apartment or her home and that he's living there. So if you look at her financial picture, she's more stable. She's more stable. She got a place, she got a job, she has more than enough money to take care of them both, right? So then her short-term goals would be to continue to secure herself and maintain that, which will lead to her accomplishing long-term financial goals. So if she has the job, she probably has health insurance, she probably has other types of benefits or anything like that, savings plans or whatever. She's secure. But then the situation with the current boyfriend is actually more insecure because she's pouring finances into him. He's not going to stay around just for cooking and sex. With men like this, you got to give them money on some kind of level. And so she's pouring into the relationship thinking that she's going to get a return on her investment. And the return that she's hoping for is not only emotional, psychological, but also financial. He would rather leave the house and go and pay for another place than to stick it out where he is and contribute. And so then she's going to be financially, maybe not necessarily strapped, but financially affected when he leaves. Even though she has been paying all this time, what she's been paying and managing the house, dealing with him still affects her finances. And you're going to see it. Is if you've ever moved in a man yourself, if you are a woman and you moved in a man yourself, you see somehow your finances are affected from that decision. And that it would have been better, you would have done a lot better just taking care of yourself and him taking care of himself in his own place, and you could have saved more effectively, you could have managed your finances more effectively. When you get into these relationships, especially when they become toxic after a while, because if he's talking about something leading to violent behavior, he's talking about a process of toxicity leading to violent behavior. When you get into these relationships, you don't put first thing first. You get more enamored with the person and with the situation than you do logically and look at the situation for what it really is. This is an adult man. If you are a man, this is an adult woman. Why doesn't this person have his or her apartment? Why doesn't this person have his or her full-time job or stable job? Even if it's not full-time in terms of 40 hours a week, he might get or she might get 28 to 32 hours a week. But something stable enough for that person to keep a place of their own, right? Because if you're going to leave, that means you're basically suggesting that you don't need the person financially once you get a decent job, but that you need the person right now because you don't have a decent job. So her long-term financial goals will be affected because women do not always make the best financial decisions when they move in a man. They always end up doing something that compromises themselves in terms of not only um, using sex to keep the relationship, using their finances to keep the relationship, to maintain a relationship, compromising their values, their belief systems. These are two belief systems. This is one belief system where the woman is going to stick it out through thick and thin, even though he's broke and doesn't have a decent job. And then there is the other belief system with the guy. He's not going to stick it out with her through thick and thin, and when he's no longer broke and got a decent job, he's going to leave, right? These are, and see, if we did more conversing, having a conversation with the individual to figure out how they think, how they perceive the world, are they emotional runners, do they jump from relationship to relationship? One of the main questions you should definitely ask is, when was the last relationship you were in, right? If you were in a relationship within the last 6 months, that is not the person to engage in a relationship, because that's really going to turn out to be a rebound relationship with you. And as a rebound, you are already operating from setback. You are already operating from a state of below. That's why he said, when I get a decent job, I'm going to leave her and start dating my types, meaning that she's not even a preference. She's not even an option, really. If you can leave her high and dry like that, uh, and um, um, and she's not even your type or your preference, then you have to question whether or not she's an option. She would remain an option as long as you have not found your type or your preference. As soon as you find your type or preference, you're going to leave the option. But then when it doesn't work out well with the type of preference, you will try to return to the option and try to give a sad story, do some blaming. Please take me back in. I love you. We can work this out. Let's get married. And then you move right back in. The finances are affected again. And then you're basically both on a hamster's wheel. So when you're thinking about financial planning, it would have been better for her not to let him come into the house, not stay there. She not move in with him, because even though you think you're going to save money, somehow you never save money. I did a roommate situation, and I was paying $650 at the time. She was offering $275 at the time. And where I was, it was much more beneficial for me to stay where I was. I was living in San Diego, downtown. I was just a few blocks away from the trolley. I was a hop, skipping, and jump from my college I was attending, San Diego State University. And it was much more convenient where I was. I could hop the bus and go to the store. It was just much more convenient. But I let her, and I fooled myself as well. I played myself. I let her fool me into believing that she was like me. I wasn't in a relationship, and I don't do any entertaining. I don't like people to come to the house. And she was offering a room, and she had a kitchen. And she was going to school too. And I let her trick me into believing that we were friends and that it was a normal thing and I could save some money. And of course, I deluded myself into believing that. And the thing is, I was blind to the idea that we're not the best types of people to live together. I don't even think I was paying attention to the 275. I was really hoping for the friendship. Well, less than 3 months, it started to take a bad turn. We didn't argue or anything like that until the very end, but her attitude just changed all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, just changed. And see, I was barely the at the apartment, so she couldn't have said to herself, "Well, I'm always there and I'm always in a way." I where I moved to, I ended up having to travel longer to my college, whereas had I just stayed where I was, it would have been better. And so I did not end up saving any money. I ended up losing money. I ended up needing money, ended up having to borrow money. So sometimes those decisions that you make, sometimes you may have to pay just for peace. That if this current girlfriend would not have let her boyfriend move in with her, she would have had more peace in the situation, because he doesn't steal. Even when he gets the decent job, he's still not going to be able to find his type immediately. So that means he's still going to stay in the house of the current girlfriend. He's still going to try to balance both belief systems, uh, keep keep the current girlfriend in the dark while he tries to pursue his type and preference. And he's going to do that quietly. So he's going to uh, probably go out on dates and lie to his current girlfriend that he's at the job or something like that, because he's not going to find his type immediately. And if he's not the kind of person who is thinking to himself, I need to get my own place, he's probably never going to get his own place until the current girlfriend kicks him out. And by the time he finds his dating type of preference, and he realizes how much money he's going to have to pay on his own to keep a roof over his head and to maintain his job and things like that, he's going to realize it would have been better for him to stay with his current girlfriend, which will become his ex-girlfriend once he dates his type and preference. So it never works out as well as you think. That's why I always say in audio lessons and social media posting that you can't do bad to get to better. You can't treat this person over here badly just until you get to the better person you want to be. It never works out. And when you're dating your types and preferences, they're going to require more than $25,000 a year. So that means that the investment that she's making into him now, he doesn't regard it. It's not enough. And also it suggests that she's putting up with anything, which is true, because he doesn't have the decent job, he's broke, and she's with him through thick and thin. And at any time, if he decides to leave and she decides to act up, he's going to utilize violent behavior. So it's very interesting, this idea about applying the concept of financial planning, because the financial planner would tell him to secure himself financially, make sure that he has the strong, reliable, secured job with a stable income that you can rely on and build upon. Save money for an apartment, then move into that apartment, put down on it and everything, move into that apartment, stay in that apartment for 1 to 3 years, right? Securing yourself, and then make a decision about marriage or any other type of romantic situation. But as soon as you get a decent job, that's the first thing you are thinking about, is trying to date your types, when you don't even have your own place. You don't even know for certain how long the job is going to be, what it's going to pay. So this could last many years. That's why you see a lot of these relationships, especially with women who desire to get married, that years will pass by. How many times have you heard someone be in a relationship 5, 10, 15, 20 years holding out hope that the man is going to marry them, because when you are in these relationships, you honestly don't pay attention to time because you're so preoccupied with this idea, well, when he gets himself together, we can get married, because that's what the person tells him. This guy here likely told his current girlfriend, when I get a decent job, then we can get married. And that's how you lead someone on without necessarily saying we're going to get married, because he makes it conditional. And so then if he doesn't have a decent job, then we're not going to get married. And then that means she has to still deal with him while he's broke, still deal with him through thick and thin, and accept whatever belief system he's putting forth into the house. So this is something that I want you to think about in terms of looking at your own financial picture and securing yourself before you consider romantic relationship building. Because if you don't have your own place, you don't need to date. You are an adult. You should not be dating from your mama's house. You should not be dating from your father's house. You should not be dating from your family member's house. If you are dating from a roommate's house because you are a legal record of tenant, a legal tenant of record, then that's completely different. You are both on the lease. That means you are grown adults. But if you are 30 years old, living at your mother's house and going out on dates, and maybe there might be an exception, your mother might be sick and you have to take care of her, and the house is really your house and she's living with you, that's completely different. But if you're living in her house, you're 30 years old, haven't really considered college, need to get yourself together financially, then going out on a date is not feasible for you. It doesn't make any sense. It's not going to be effective for you long term, because you are investing all your money into dating when you should be investing all your money into saving it and securing a place for you to live as an adult. Because if you're living with someone else, that means you are basically homeless. And whoever you are living with can basically kick you out at any time. That includes your mother's house. So to secure yourself financially, it would be better for you to get the job, secure a place, pay for that place on your own. That is you being an adult. But you thinking about romance when you are not secure financially does not make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to do that, because you need to always do first things first. So again, financial planning involves looking at a client's entire financial picture and advising them on how to achieve their short-term and long-term financial goals. Think about the concept of financial planning and apply it to this post. It will provide some insight for you. So you can visit reginawhitefavors.com, my website, for more information, blog articles, and tips. I am also on all social media platforms. So just type in my name, Regina White Favors. Thank you very much for listening.